This season of The Ones Who Succeed is brought to you by Skillshare.
You know, I think most people, as you talk to people who've started things, like I really believe it's a calling. Mm-hmm. Like you get the message and you pick up the phone and you answer the call and then you go do it. And there's really no question.
Hi, my name is Campbell Baron and I'm a 15-year-old entrepreneur and content creator. And you are watching my video podcast, where each week I meet with inspiring entrepreneurs and talk to them about their journey to success. Hear their stories, experiences, and firsthand what it took to succeed in their field. Why am I doing this? Because I want to learn from the ones who succeed. And you can too. Welcome back to another episode of The Ones Who Succeed. I am Campbell Baron, and today I am joined by my wonderful guest, Elizabeth Cutler. Elizabeth is the co-founder of SoulCycle. For the few people who do not know what SoulCycle is a fitness company that offers indoor cycling workout classes in studios all over North America. As well, after selling SoulCycle to Equinox, Elizabeth also co-founded a company called LifeShop that specializes in advising, investing, and incubating new businesses. Elizabeth, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
I'm so excited to meet you. I really am. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, so your story, it interests me a lot. But before we get into all of SoulCycle, all of that, let's go back in time. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up outside of Chicago in a suburb called Lake Forest, which is very beautiful and pretty conservative. And both of my parents were entrepreneurs in their own way. My mom was in the real estate business that she started when she was, I think, 40 or 41. And my dad was a commodities trader, so he worked for himself for his whole career. Mm-hmm. Do you think that having your parents being entrepreneurs maybe had an influence on you? I think whatever your parents do has an influence on you. And it certainly had an influence on me. I learned at an early age, if you want to make something happen, you're the one to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. So at a young age, Elizabeth knew she wanted to work in business. So she eventually went to the University of Boulder, Colorado, but shortly after moved to Telluride, Colorado, which is known for being a popular American ski town. She worked in Telluride as a real estate agent and ended up spending almost 10 years living there. While living there, Elizabeth met her husband Alan when he visited Telluride on a ski vacation. And shortly after, Elizabeth moved to New York and lived with Alan. And so I guess that you probably lived an active lifestyle in Telluride. Was that a big change going from like mountains to New York City?
Yes, it was a huge change. And that's part of the reason why SoulCycle happened, because I had hiked every day with my friends and with my dogs. And when I moved to New York, I stopped hiking and I really needed to get cardio. I never thought about hiking as exercise. I just thought about it as something that I did with my friends and a way to be in nature. And then I realized I really needed to have some kind of, physical, like strong physical activity. And SoulCycle fit that bill.
So Elizabeth was living in New York, but she wasn't hiking and staying active like she did in Telluride. So she realized she needed some form of cardio because exercise was something that was missing from her life. So her friend took her to a spin class out of town, and immediately Elizabeth fell in love. But when she came back to New York and tried to find the same style of spin class, she couldn't. So Elizabeth realized,
I'm going to have to start this. So I started looking for space and I started riding with this one teacher who was one of our original founders. And she had said to me, you should meet Julie Rice. Mm-hmm. And so the three of us had lunch and Alan came. So the four of us were there at lunch and Julie and I just started talking. And we just started finishing each other's sentences. It was totally magical from the get-go. And she got in the taxi and we kept talking and the conversation 12 years later has not stopped.
What next, right? You have this great, you meet Julie, you guys definitely hit it off. You kind of are both working towards the same. You guys both have this kind of idea and working towards the same goal. Do you guys just, like, what happens next? Where do you go next?
Well, she was working at a day job, so she had a desk and a phone.
Yeah.
And I was practicing Jiu-Jitsu in the West Village, and I had 2 little kids. So I had a lot of flexibility to run around and do the things that needed to happen out there in the world. And that's kind of how we divided and conquered. So I would go look at real estate and do all the legwork on that. And she researched towels and made phone calls. And then we'd kind of, make a list and hold each other accountable and get stuff done and come back to each other the next day or the end of the day and share what we had accomplished or what we were struggling with.
What about your friends and family? Like, what did they think? Did they think that did they take this seriously? Did they think that this was, this is awesome? Or were they like, what are you doing with your life? Like, what was the reaction you got from your friends and family during that period of time while you're building the company early on?
I mean, most people could appreciate the why of it because they knew I was desperate. Like I was desperate to find some fitness that I could do. Like I really was not even a question that I needed to do that for myself. I mean, if you knew me, you would know that I needed that. So you could appreciate that aspect. So I think that people definitely were kind and loving. But I know, and many people said things from, you're going to ruin your life to, don't you know that spinning's dead? To, what do you mean there are no showers? To, why would somebody pay for something that they get for free at their gym? To, nobody is going to want to do this. It's a total fad. I mean, it went on and on and on. So there were plenty of detractors, and that's it was a great challenge. It actually made it more fun.
So you were driven.
I was driven. It just was a calling. I think most people, as you talk to people who've started things, like I really believe it's a calling. Like you get the message and you pick up the phone and you answer the call and then you go do it. And there's really no question. Of course you're going to do it.
How did you get funding? How did that work? Did you pitch to investors? Were there investors? Did you self-fund it? How did that happen?
So, we self-funded it. I wouldn't have even known. First of all, nobody. It's funny. Like we're investors. My husband and I do a lot of stuff, and Julie and Spencer as well. And nobody would have written a $2 check to me. There's just no way. I had no background in fitness. Anyway, it's funny now that I'm in that world, and when sometimes founders feel a little bit insecure, I'm like, you don't have to worry about it. It's just about like what you're going to make happen. Anyway, to answer that question directly, how did we fund? We funded it ourselves, and we were super frugal.
So prior to founding SoulCycle, Elizabeth and her husband Alan made an angel investment in a friend's company called Izzy Beverage. She hoped the investment would pay off, and then one day in 2006, right when Elizabeth was starting SoulCycle, she got a letter in the mail.
I open it up and there's a check in there for $264,000, and I start screaming like I have won the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes. I was so excited. So I had that moment just stay so fresh in my mind because it meant that Julie and I were free to make the decisions for the company as we saw fit, period. Yeah. And it was such a gift.
So Elizabeth uses the money from the investment to open up the first SoulCycle location in the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And the idea was working, so they soon realized SoulCycle was ready to grow.
We opened a pop-up in Bridgehampton. Our friend, Annbeth Eschbach, ran Exhale, and she had, I had cold called her one day as like a new fitness professional, and she was wonderful. She took my call. We had a great conversation, and then she let me know about this space that was available out in the Hamptons. And we thought, well, we could spend money on marketing by buying ads, but that is so one-dimensional, and we really weren't sure how we would communicate that well, and it was pretty expensive. So instead, we decided to do a pop-up and give people the experience of it, and we put it right next to this camp and this cool old potato barn, and it was just really great vibes. And we opened it and people loved it. So when September came and people left their summer vacations and came back to the city, it really amped up what was going on in that West 72nd Street studio. And at that point we realized we had already known that we were going to expand, but it really was time to go time.
Coming up, I continue my conversation, but first a quick message from our sponsor. This season of The Ones Who Succeed is brought to you by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with over 20,000 classes in business, marketing, technology, design, and more. You can take classes in social media marketing, video editing, entrepreneurship, you name it, they've got it. So whether you're trying to deepen your professional skill set, start a side hustle, or just explore a new passion, Skillshare is there to keep you learning and thriving. So join the millions of students already learning on Skillshare today, because Skillshare is offering the first 250 people who click the link in the description 2 months of unlimited access to over 20,000 classes, all for free. To sign up, go to Skillshare.com/succeed. Again, that's Skillshare.com/succeed to start your first 2 months now. That link is also right here on the top right corner of this video, and a special thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this season.
I mean, I remember sitting in my office during the 2008 recession when Schwinn went into bankruptcy and our bikes stopped being made. And we were getting ready to scale and open a lot of studios. And imagine that there are no bikes that we could buy.
Yeah, that's insane.
None. And so we got on the internet and we bought every single bike on the planet that was the model that we were using in the studios. It didn't matter where it was. We got it, we put it in a warehouse, and then we trained teams to figure out how to fix these things and take pieces apart. And it's like deciding that you're gonna have a corner on the market of a certain kind of car.
Yeah,
it doesn't get made anymore until we could figure out how to make our own bike. Those kinds of things would happen.
That's crazy.
And that's just one example.
Mm-hmm. So Elizabeth continued to grow the company, but then something interesting happened. In 2011, the fitness company Equinox acquired a majority stake in SoulCycle.
One thing sort of led to another, and we felt like it would be great to work with somebody who had already scaled in multiple states that could help give us a playbook.
I mean, you stayed on for quite a bit as the co-CEO, so you were still running the company. But now you had someone to report to, essentially. Mm-hmm. What effect did that have on you? Did that bother you a little bit? Was it tough to get used to that?
Of course, yes and no. And they're sort of, what I can say about it is this. Like, I think both Julie and I welcomed the opportunity to work with people that had kind of seen the movie before. Mm-hmm. And we're the kind of people who feel like we can work with anybody. And so I think that we really welcomed the opportunity to kind of figure it out. And I think for those guys, they had never done it either. So it was a big sort of experiment for both of us. And when we first did it, someone said, you already have 2 children, your business is your business. It's not a child. And I realized later that person is not an entrepreneur, because SoulCycle was definitely my love child with Julie. And, over time, to not have full control over that had its own challenges. But I think, ultimately SoulCycle got to the people.
It did.
And that's what we wanted to see happen.
So eventually Elizabeth and Julie left SoulCycle in 2016. But just like most entrepreneurs, they were still very much full of ideas. So together they started using their expertise to help other entrepreneurs build and grow their businesses.
We wanted to work with, to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure if we knew what we wanted, but what we were doing was working with other entrepreneurs, helping people kind of problem solve, doing a bunch of advising and investing in other companies, and enjoying that.
I guess now you're involved in Life Shop, right? Mm-hmm. So what is Life Shop? Like what's the idea behind that?
It's a great question. It's ever evolving. It's taking a lot of what I just said, that we work with entrepreneurs that we think are doing worthwhile endeavors that we're interested in and that we can help. So an example of that would be The Wing, which is a women's co-working space. We've been working with Audrey and Lauren since they started, and that's been super interesting.
Yeah, I know about them. Yeah,
it's great. The way that we've been able to take our experience at SoulCycle and help other entrepreneurs, and we continue to do that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Elizabeth Cutler, for taking the time to sit down with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I had the best time. I love that you're doing this. I'm so excited.
Cool.
I'm excited. I'm excited. You make me excited for the future. when you're desperate, there's no decision not to. It's like the only thing that you're going to do. It's like a laser focus.
I don't think there's another company that I could have started. Like, this is the only company that I could have started because, like, it came from doing something that I love, which is making podcasts.
An accidental entrepreneur.
An accidental entrepreneur.
You
Yeah.
fell into it.
Yeah.